Hey, thanks for joining the Monday episode of the Frank Figliuzzi Show. And while I like to think that every show we have is important, this one is deeply meaningful for me, and it should be for others because it really goes toward the future of justice in America. I don't think that's an overly dramatic statement to make. And I'm referring, of course, to this week's scheduled confirmation hearings for Todd Blanche to be the next Attorney General of the United States. We need to get deep into that. And what a great guest today to do that with. Stacey Young is the founder and executive director of Justice Connection. She was an 18-year DOJ veteran who worked at the DOJ until January 24 of last year. She served as a senior attorney in the Civil Division and later in the Civil Rights Division, working under 5 presidential administrations and 7 attorneys general. I've said this before. Career professionals are there holding up the institutions that make our country run while political appointees come and go. Stacey founded the DOJ Gender Equality Network in 2016 and served as its president. And after intimidation from the current administration, she shut down that organization on the day she left the Justice Department. She and DOJ Gen advocated for policies and practices that made the department and the entire federal government a safer, healthier, and fairer place to work. I guess that was a problem. We'll hear more about that. She is now heading Justice Connection to come alongside and support the former DOJ employees and current DOJ employees who have come under fire and are struggling with their next steps under the Trump administration. And I'm proud to say that I have signed their most recent letter to the Senate opposing the nomination for Attorney General of Todd Blanche. We'll get into all of that. Let's bring in our guest, Stacey Young. Stacey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a great week to have you on, if there's any such thing as great in a week like this that's coming up. Look, I want to start, as they say, as we say in the FBI, start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your background, your DOJ tenure, and what got you to the point where you were out of DOJ and running the Justice Connection.
So, as you said, I was a lawyer at DOJ for 18 years. During the Trump campaign and during the transition, I took very seriously what he was saying about his plans for the federal workforce, the fact that he was planning on attacking the federal workforce, reducing and demonizing the workforce. He and his administration officials were referring to federal employees as the deep state, as, enemies of the country. The current OMB director said that that the administration was going to put federal employees in trauma. Those words actually came out of his mouth. And I took what they were saying extremely seriously. And I started looking around to see what organizations out there were preparing to support federal employees. I knew that their staying in the federal government would be pivotal to the survival of the rule of law and our democracy. And I wasn't seeing much happening. So I thought, I ran an organization inside of DOJ. I figured out how to do it there. Maybe I could try to do it outside the department because I knew that nothing inside the department would work. So that's what I did. I decided I was going to leave the department to try to do that. I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times a week before I left, a week before the inauguration, calling on Americans to support federal employees and don't just tell them that they need to stay. I knew that we all knew that. That was kind of a call to action. And then about a week after the inauguration, I resigned. And shortly after that, launched Justice Connection. And, since then, it's become a real lifeline for DOJ and FBI employees. Immediately after we launched, people started reaching out looking for support. We, within a few months, created specialized support networks. We figured out what employees would need, and we created support networks to provide it. We created a pro bono legal support network. Now we have over 250 DOJ alumni lawyers who are representing DOJ employees for free in employment matters, when they're under investigation, when they want to blow the whistle. We have a mental health support network that's connecting countless DOJ employees with free counseling. We have an employment support network to help people find new jobs, because over 16,000 DOJ employees have been purged. We support whistleblowers who want to speak out. And just 2 months ago, we launched an FBI support network to provide customized support to individuals in the FBI. We knew that they, who are extremely under attack right now, wouldn't come to us unless they knew that we had people from the Bureau on board. We have a number of high-profile and line-level former FBI officials who let them know that we're here, and we are now, getting a ton of people from the Bureau, both recent and current employees who are coming to us for help. So it's been an incredibly important endeavor. And in addition to the direct support we provide, we speak out every day in the media, in the public square, in Congress, about what's going on. We've been quoted now in national outlets more than 300 times. And we mobilize DOJ and FBI alumni to speak out too, because we understand the Bureau and the department better than anyone. We know what's at stake. We speak from a credible, apolitical perspective, and that voice is really needed right now. So that's kind of a long-winded overview of what we're all about and what we're doing.
No, that's a great, not just a summary. That's a great in-depth description of what you do. And it's funny, I get so many of my followers and subscribers saying, Frank, is there every time there's an announcement that some DOJ prosecutor, some FBI agent, or in the last 24 hours, some FBI analysts have been fired, people contact me. Is there anything we could do? Is there any organization that exists out there to help these folks? And now, here we are. It's yours, and you're doing that work. Stacey, with 18 years in at DOJ, am I sensing that wasn't a pension that was coming your way? That sounds like it's less than 20 years. What was that like? And specifically, what was it that made what you were doing inside DOJ so anathema, apparently, to what Trump was wanting?
Yeah. I ran this organization that you mentioned for about 8 years, and we did things that I don't think were terribly controversial. Like, we advocated for paid family leave, which resulted in a statute that provided all federal employees with 3 months after they have a child. We advocated against sexual misconduct because DOJ and the FBI had a serious problem, an unaddressed problem, and we got a new policy and a committee to address the problem created at DOJ. We worked on pay equity to make sure that people weren't getting paid less because they made less money at their last positions. We got a regulation promulgated that eliminated the requirement that you provide your salary history. These are things that benefited everyone, men and women, people in all roles. These were non-controversial advocacy campaigns we launched successfully, but they really pissed off the first Trump administration. They tried to shut us down at the end of the first Trump administration, and I knew that Trump 2 was going to be a lot different, more aggressive, less scrupulous. And I knew that I really was not going to be able to stay at the department. And I thought that, if I'm going to do something to help employees and try to uphold the rule of law, it was going to need to be outside the department. And, that's what I set out to do.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think a lot of people are glad you did. Give us a sense of the numbers, because I'm having trouble staying up to date and even really getting accurate information that I think is credible on how many folks have left the various Department of Justice agencies, and particularly DOJ and FBI, because the numbers are wildly different. I'm hearing, like, for example, when the FBI director testifies on the Hill, he gets asked about this, and he won't nail it down. I mean, I've seen 1,000 people have left under him. I've heard of 5,000 employees have left the Bureau. What do you know about the Exodus and what that looks like?
Are you suggesting that the current FBI director has a strained relationship with the truth?
Oh, yes.
I think I hear you saying.
Draw your own conclusions.
Yeah. So overall, it's been more than 16,000 across DOJ and all of the law enforcement agencies. And that represents more than a quarter of the lawyers at DOJ. Some components in DOJ have been totally decimated, like the Civil Rights Division, parts of the Environmental and Natural Resources Defense Division, the Tax Division, parts of the Civil Division. In the FBI, the Exodus has been around, I think, 5,000 individuals. I think the number is roughly 3,000 agents. We have more exact data, which is not on the tip of my tongue right now, but that's kind of the ballpark we're talking about.
Yeah, it's hard, it's hard, right? Because in a way, because some of them are firing, some of them are retiring as soon as you can. Some of them are, I think you better leave now, intimidation. So it's tough to categorize the total numbers.
Yeah. And, the numbers and one of the things we're doing is soon we're going to have a dashboard on our website that does track the numbers at FBI and DOJ so people can keep up with what's happening there. But the numbers themselves don't really speak to the destruction that the purge has caused, because disproportionately high number of those who have left and been pushed out are very senior officials. You've seen many special agents in charge being either fired or pushed out. And those are, as you know, of course, the top officials at FBI field offices. And you've seen that at DOJ too. And when that happens, it really destabilizes the rest of the office. It can leave offices rudderless, and people end up not being able to do their work as effectively as they would have. And it also leads to more departures on the tail end of that. So, we've calculated that, the number of years officials overall had who have left is I think 16 years. So it's really, you're seeing a lot of the senior officials at DOJ pushed out and FBI, and it's because this administration doesn't want them to get in the way of their agenda. So it's been really devastating.
When someone leaves, and we've had some news of departures very recently. So, for example, I posted about SAC Chicago, who has left. I don't know all the details there. I found it interesting that he even made a little statement in his departure notice. I also was made aware that
you can read between the lines there.
Oh, yes. Well, something has displeased the masters for sure. And he's not happy about his departure. And then even there was news that a neighboring field office, Detroit, that SAC posted, simply shared with his office the departure announcement of SAC Chicago. And he had to issue a retraction and an apology to his office for simply sharing the statement of SAC Chicago that he was leaving. So there's that. And then more recently, we've got these two, a married couple, I guess, intelligence analysts who allegedly refused to work their assignment regarding the Fulton County ballot case because they claim it did not have proper legal predication. What happens when you get wind of this? Do people reach out to you? Does someone refer folks to your organization? How do they know that help is there?
So it's strange, and this has happened since day one. I mean, we learn a lot of what you read in the news before it hits the news. And sometimes it's people, people's friends or coworkers tell them about us, but more often at this point, people just know that we're here. And we know that's one of the reasons so many people have stayed, despite the difficult circumstances under which they're working, is because they know that there's an organization on the outside who will help them if they need the help. And they know that there could come a time when they need the help. So it's been we have been a lifeline for employees across the department, both when they need our help, when they're experiencing some kind of crisis, and it's been a lifeline that they know they will be able to take advantage of if the time comes when they're, issued an illegal order or terminated or put on administrative leave, or when they witness something illegal or unethical or unconstitutional and they want to blow the whistle. So it's just, we are playing a vital role, and those inside know it.
Yeah, there's no question it's vital and much needed. And even, on a par with or greater than the more visible part of what Justice Connection does, which is write these letters. Over the years, I have signed a number of letters that have gone to the Senate or the House or both houses, opposing some nomination. And I just did it again with Todd Blanche. And a lot of folks will come back at me. I posted about signing this letter, the most recent letter with Blanche, and we're going to dig into Blanche's nomination. There's the headline. There's your headline from Justice Connection up on the screen. Over 1,200 of us. But let's play the clip, Sean, of what Todd Blanche thinks of 1,200 former DOJ employees.
I mean, look, there's 1,200 former DOJ employees, I think out of 40,000. So I don't know, I'm not a math guy, but that's not a very high percentage. I think there's people on there that were on work with Jack Smith and special counsel. The fact that there are a group of individuals out there that do not want me to be Attorney General is okay with me. I'm going to still work hard and still work with the Senate, Republicans or Democrats that have any questions for me about the validity or whether I should be confirmed.
Okay, Stacey, what say you about that? And I have to say, when he says there are people on there who worked with Jack Smith, I go, okay, and what? And your problem is? So what are you hearing from the powers that be about your organization?
Yeah, he's not a math guy. I mean, he's also not a rule of law guy, which is why 1,200 of his former coworkers signed a letter opposing his nomination. If 1,200 of my former coworkers spoke out against my promotion, I'd withdraw my name. And, another thing to note about this effort, this is the first time DOJ alumni have done something like this. DOJ alumni, FBI alumni are not the types of people to speak out publicly especially against somebody who used to be a career DOJ employee himself. This is just not normal for people to do, and it speaks to how outrageous this nomination is. And the fact that the administration has been trying to pick off a few individuals who they don't like from that list of 1,200, like former Jack Smith prosecutors, they pointed to others. It's like, okay, let's stipulate. They should let's all agree for sake of the argument, get them out of there. There's still 1,200 people there. They're like over 1,200 people who signed. A tiny little handful were on the Jack Smith team. There were a couple others who they pointed to. Okay, you still have 1,200.
Yeah,
I know you're not a math guy, but it doesn't take a math genius to realize that 1,200 is a lot of people speaking out.
It sounds like a statistically significant number of people to me.
Yeah. And a culture of fear that he has helped create.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of guts these days, even to just sign a letter against the Justice Department, because it has been weaponized against enemies of this administration. So to sign a letter, you are publicly speaking out and putting yourself at risk of retaliation by the FBI and DOJ. 1,200 people were willing to take that risk. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, for sure. In this environment, as you say, and I'm well aware of that personally. Are you concerned at all about your own, about retaliation against you and something being ginned up against you or other leadership on your team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know it's absolutely a possibility. But I also know that I've done nothing illegal. Right. I also know that there would be plenty of people who have my back. Like I mentioned earlier, we have over 250 volunteer DOJ alumni lawyers who would be willing to help.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of what would be a vindictive investigation or prosecution because I did nothing wrong.
Right.
And the same could be said again about so many people who they've already targeted by using the FBI and the courts. So, I don't want to sound foolish, but like, bring it on. I haven't done anything illegal. I still have First Amendment rights.
Yeah, they quote the Constitution a lot, but they seem to apply it only to themselves. Let's get into the weeds on Todd Blanche, because Wednesday and Thursday of this week, unless something changes, and I know there's been discussion. I saw something in the Washington Post this morning about, there's some concern about Senator Graham's demise and what that means to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then ultimately, if his nomination goes to the floor of the Senate, whether or not Mitch McConnell will come out of his rehab facility or not. And so what at the heart of what this letter is that we all signed, or 1,200 of us or more signed, what is at the crux of your argument, our argument? Tell my listeners, our listeners, what are the top, if this was our David Letterman's top 10 list as to why Todd Blanche should not be confirmed, what's at the top of that list?
The depressing thing is that it's really hard to figure out what is the worst among the parade of horribles. But you could, there's so many things you could point to. You could point to, the fact that he completely botched the Epstein files and the Maxwell interview. You could talk about his complete, sanctioning of the erasure of accountability for January 6th. You could look to the recent, dismissal of the convictions based on seditious conspiracy of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Yeah. You could look to all of the vindictive prosecutions and investigations that he's been responsible. You could look to the slush fund that a court today just found to be illegal. You could look to his refusal to open investigations after the Renee Good and Alex Preddy shootings. You could look to DOJ's attacks on the courts and refusal to follow court orders under his leadership. What the letter really focuses on is his attacks on the workforce, the people who do the work at DOJ, the people who uphold the rule of law and keep our community safe and keep our nation secure are the career employees at the Department of Justice. 99% of DOJ is career employees, and they have been under attack. And it's largely because of Todd Blanche. That alone is disqualifying. So, it's certainly easy to come up with countless reasons to oppose this guy.
It is. It is for sure. We could go another hour on getting in the weeds on every single one of those things you just mentioned. I think, the ones that are making the news now have to do with the DOJ threatening state and county election officials if they don't comply with demands to turn over their voting records. That's outrageous. Ginning up cases. Allowing U.S. attorneys like the one in Los Angeles to say, I'm going to open a case on the California election. I don't have anything yet, but I'm going to open a case on it, and on and on and on. And the Epstein debacle is so blatant. His responses to questions, even responses when he's testifying on the Hill, we've given you everything we're going to give you, it's closed. And then this disingenuous, if anyone has any information, any victims, survivors, our doors are open. They can come to us. That's bullshit. And so, and the victims will tell you that. But you're right, as your organization, to focus on the kind of death by 1,000 cuts that's being experienced within the DOJ career cadre, because that is where our values are upheld despite the changes in political leadership. And then for me personally, also, I think his key conflict, the core of the conflict, is this guy still thinks he's the personal attorney for Donald Trump. He has served as Trump's personal attorney. He has benefited to the tune of millions of dollars. His law firm made $9 million in work on behalf of Trump, Manafort. For those wondering, what exactly did Blanche work on? He worked on the hush money case involving Stormy Daniels, which, by the way, he lost. So there's that.
I think he lost on all counts, right?
Yeah,
dozens of counts.
Yeah, and Trump's appealing through using another lawyer, but who knows, right? And that to me, coupled with, and Sean, do we have the clip where that kind of illustrates how Blanche still has the mindset and is kind of proud of it, of being the personal attorney to the president? Do we have that one?
Yesterday, you created a $1.8 billion slush fund to dole out taxpayer dollars to the president's supporters, including those who attacked this Capitol on January 6th. That is pure theft of public funds. And rewarding individuals who committed crimes is obscene. Every American can see through this illegal, corrupt, self-dealing scheme. Mr. Blanche, the record is crystal clear. You are still acting as the president's personal lawyer, not as acting attorney general. It is hard to justify giving you any funds that will enable this pattern of wrongdoing to continue.
It is true that this is unusual. That is true. But it is not unprecedented, and it was done to address something that had never happened again either.
It's not. So that's what we call a confession in our business. That yes, it is true, but it's not unusual. I don't know, or it is unusual, but it's happened before. I don't know what the hell he's talking about.
It hasn't happened before. He's talking about a case called Keeps Eagle, and one of the lawyers on Keeps Eagle from DOJ wrote a piece on our Substack that explained exactly why that is not in any way a legitimate precedent for what he did here.
My word. Yeah, and so
I mean, the disingenuous arguments coming out of his office in DOJ are just shocking. You know, he has signed briefs. I think he signed these briefs where in the legal briefs from DOJ, they will say Trump derangement syndrome in all caps, like the way President Trump writes. He has said Americans should be happy about the fact that the president is directing prosecutions. He said during a DOJ press conference, "I love you, sir," about the president. I mean, the obsequiousness, the absolute erasure of the divide between DOJ and the White House that had been sharp since Watergate. I mean, he is the president's lawyer. He doesn't deny that, really. He denied it during his confirmation hearing, but he has embraced that role ever since. And for this Senate to confirm him would be ratifying. It would be putting its stamp on approval on what has happened at DOJ, on the fact that DOJ has become the president's law firm. That is appalling. That is not how the rule of law works.
Is Justice Connection getting any traction in the Senate? I mean, you get, even let's talk about Democrats or Republicans. Do you get people in contact with you, elected lawmakers saying thank you, or what, can you flesh this out, or meeting with you? I mean, or are you banging your head against the wall?
No, I mean, we're in touch with Senate staff all the time.
Okay.
So we work with them often. We provide them with, help with strategy, with information from inside, with statistics. We run a DOJ tracker on our website, which documents all of the attacks, both on the workforce and attacks by DOJ on the rule of law. They use that all the time. So we provide them with assistance on a regular basis. What's going to happen after the hearing, I can't predict. I mean, I think in terms of the committee vote, it's going to come down likely to Senators Tillis and, I probably Tillis is the most likely to flip, but I don't know. I'm not going to spend much time trying to prognosticate. We're doing everything we can to either stop this confirmation or make it as hard as possible for senators to vote for him. And we are going to do what we can to hold them accountable for that vote if they do, in fact, vote to confirm.
I'm glad you said that, because I do, and I'm sure you hear it as well. When I posted the letter and said I signed it, I did get a handful of people saying, boy, do I understand the frustration. Of course I do. And the despondency in some cases, saying, Frank, what difference will it make? And my answer is what you just said, which is I want to go on record historically that yes, my name is on there. When someday, my grandkids ask me or do research and find out that, I sat by idly while democracy failed, I don't want that to happen. And so if nothing more, as a matter of principle, fighting this, making it hard to get these types of people confirmed, letting senators, blush in embarrassment that they have to vote for this guy, I think serves a purpose as well.
Yep. There's been a lot of focus on this nomination. There will be a lot of attention paid to the hearing. Americans are watching. And if the Senate is going to allow this guy who's been responsible for so much of the damage at DOJ and FBI to get promoted to the top role on a permanent basis, they're going to have some things to answer for. And we want to spell out what those things are. And we want to be able to hold them to account after the fact. I mean, we're in the middle of a large campaign to try to, tank this nomination. And we did the same thing for Emil Bovee last year when he was nominated to be a Third Circuit judge. We brought attention to a whole lot of things he had done. We worked with whistleblowers. We worked with the Senate. We had DOJ alumni speak out. We created videos. We worked with the press. We did a ton of work. Ultimately, he was confirmed to the Third Circuit, but he is a tarnished judge, in part because of what we brought to light. And I personally think that the reason he was chosen for the Third Circuit is because President Trump wants to nominate him for the next Supreme Court's opening. I think that our advocacy around that will make that more difficult. And we believe that even if Todd Blanche gets confirmed, we want to bring to light why that is a horrendous decision on the part of the Senate.
Yeah, for sure. Boy, Bovee is, for those who may not remember, he's the guy who showed up at DOJ and immediately demanded the list of agents and analysts by name who worked the January 6th cases, which was, by the way, much of the FBI, of course, over 1,000 investigations that impacted every field office. And then famously or infamously, acting director Driscoll just said, "No, I'll give you their employee numbers, or I'll give you this, but I'm not giving you all their names." And so that ended up in obviously Driscoll moving on as well.
He was fired because of it, and that was an extraordinarily courageous thing he did.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons he's now on our advisory committee for the FBI Support Network, because he is regarded across the Bureau as a hero, as somebody who stood up for the career workforce. That's what we're all about. And, the sacrifice he made to do that is it's inspiring.
Yeah, you have to understand, folks, you're giving up a pension, you have a family to feed, you have college tuition to look at, and it is quite the sacrifice. It's not unusual for me to get contacted, strangely, often by spouses of FBI employees. It's kind of a plausible deniability, I guess.
Yep.
Hey, my loved one is being asked to do something inappropriate. We don't know what to do. And I'm glad your organization is there to do that.
And the reason their spouses are probably reaching out to you is because they're using polygraphs on FBI employees. And, if it was your spouse and not you who reached out, then they can deny that they did, truthfully. And that is horrific. I mean, you're polygraphing federal employees at the country's most important law enforcement agency. I mean, how does this make sense?
Well, this gets to, what a work environment. Imagine coming to work not knowing if you're going to be, never mind fired, but you might get polygraphed today. You get tapped on the shoulder and you're told to report to a polygraph examiner. And you're not going to be asked about a national security question or about leaking a case, but rather whether you've spoken ill of the director. And then, we get reporting, I believe, from crack reporters at NBC and MS Now, saying that there is, talk about a slush fund, that allegedly the director is handing out bonus money to his closest agent advisors. And many people view that, he's allegedly blown through the bonus money at FBI and is giving him to the security detail and his director's advisory team. And some people see that as, hush money, just shut up.
Yeah.
and do the job. And meanwhile, I can only imagine
Not his money, it's taxpayers' money.
Yeah. And I believe Raskin, Congressman Raskin, is asking for accountability. What the hell? You blew through $1 million in bonus money, and imagine the morale in the field and other parts of headquarters going, I worked the biggest corruption case this year. Am I getting a bonus? Well, we blew through it.
Yeah, I mean, taxpayer dollars. And that's not the only place in the department where you're seeing bonuses. DOJ offices are now offering signing bonuses to people who will take jobs at the department because it is impossible to find anyone who wants to work there right now. And they're also giving retention bonuses to people who are there now to get them to stay in the department, because they have created such a hostile work environment. They have made it so difficult to stay and do your job that they're having to pay people off to take these jobs and to stay in these jobs. I mean, that's unprecedented.
I'm glad you brought that up, and you combine that with the very young age now of special agents in charge, U.S. attorneys, and combine it with reduced training.
Yep.
The need to, whoever heard of offering a bonus? You're talking about some of the most competitive jobs in criminal law, and you're telling people we'll take you out of law school, right out of law school, to be an AUSA, or you need a recruitment bonus. Unheard of. And on my side of the house, the national security side, look, we're vulnerable to attack. We're at war with Iran again, the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and you have inexperienced people running some of the most high-risk operations we have to keep the nation safe. And what are you seeing similarly, if any, on the prosecution side?
Yeah, I mean, they are purging prosecutors who are working on national security matters. They fired the EDVA prosecutor who was, first chair in the Abbey Gate prosecution. They've gutted the National Security Division in DOJ. I mean, these are just idiotic, unforced errors. Do we not care about being, protected against our foreign adversaries? We had such amazing, an amazing national security infrastructure at DOJ and FBI, and they've just gutted it.
Yeah.
Why?
And you know what?
Are you doing?
Our adversaries know that.
I know, of course.
They know it, and they're watching it. And
absolutely.
Frankly, I'm surprised we haven't had a major attack.
It's early. I mean, it's terrifying how much more vulnerable we are right now than we were a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
because of what? The president's retribution campaign.
And the diversion of talented resources to, make civil arrests and immigration, cases and support ICE. Those people came from joint terrorism task forces to do that.
Right.
And then civil, your background's in civil, and even within the civil division. And I'm appalled at what has happened to the civil rights division. And, we're talking about a division that did historic, mammoth changes, cases that changed the way we live in America and protected minority rights. And now we hear, well, civil rights now means that, gun ownership, because we've got to make sure that it's easier to buy guns and easier to possess them. And we're changing about 30 regulations to make it easier to get your hands on a gun, even if you have a mental illness, for example. So, the concept of civil rights has now changed to let's protect gun rights and let's work cases that discriminate because of discrimination against white people. What are you seeing there at the Civil Rights Division?
Well, they've turned the division's mission on its head. Instead of protecting vulnerable communities with the civil rights laws that are on the books that Congress passed decades ago, they're using those laws to target vulnerable communities, like trans kids. They're focusing on gun rights, which is not obviously within the jurisdiction of the Civil Rights Division. They're targeting universities because of, people who protested things they don't like. It's horrifying. And to think about the work not getting done, to think about the consent agreements that addressed awful abuses within police departments that have been overturned by this division, consent decrees that had been on the books for years, that were pretty uncontroversial, that the jurisdictions wanted, they're just overturning them. And they're focusing now on enforcing civil rights in a way that benefits mostly, it seems like, white men and gun owners.
Yeah. And the gun lobby, because if you please the gun lobby by making it easier to purchase and acquire guns, you get that kind of campaign donation that you need to keep winning. That's happening as well.
Across the department, you're seeing that kind of corrupt decision-making across the department. It's why they're cutting out career staff in the antitrust division from, oversight over mergers. It's why they destroyed the tax division. It's why they're pursuing white-collar crime so much less than they were. It's why they destroyed the public integrity section. The decision-making is informed by corruption and individuals on the outside who are working with the White House. This kind of thing was just unthinkable before this administration.
One of the, in terms of power and money driving these death by 1,000 cuts and what they choose to work and not work, look at what Pam Bondi did. And I think literally her first week on the job, she got rid of the cryptocurrency crime task force, a separate unit that goes after kleptocracy and people, world leaders who run off with their country's money and then launder it. That's gone. Foreign influence task force led by the FBI. Environmental crimes, we're just not seeing that kind of work being done. And that's, if people think, well, that's just kind of an anti-woke agenda. No, it's driven by money, folks. It's big, powerful corporations who donate to campaigns. They don't want that kind of oversight. They don't want it. Yeah.
They just renamed the Environment and Natural Resources Division to the Energy and Natural Resources Division. Why did they do that? It's because they want to please energy companies. Yeah. They're not subtle about it. Mm-hmm. They're not being opaque about it. We know what's going on.
Right.
And, one of the things Justice Connection tries to do is to bring light to what is happening there.
You should continue it. What can folks do? You've got our attention. What, if anything, can our viewers do to help you and Justice Connection?
Yeah, we encourage everyone to follow our Substack. We have DOJ career alumni writing pieces, several every week. You should follow our DOJ tracker on our website. You should join our network so you can get regular updates. And I have to do this, but, we encourage people to donate as well. We are a small organization. We are a new organization. None of us learned how to raise money when we were at DOJ and the FBI. We rely on supporters on the outside to make this work because it does take some money to run the operation. We're lean, but, we encourage our supporters to support us in any way you can. And financial support really goes a long way.
Yeah, awesome. I encourage folks to do that. And those pro bono lawyers, they need to eat as well. So that's helpful as well. Look, we're all going to be glued to the hearings Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be tuned in to particularly how Todd Blanche answers, or infamously answers, questions about, who won the election? Was Biden the president or not? We'll look at January 6 questions. All kinds of things. His statement about he made to CPAC a while back about how I don't see why people have a problem with ICE agents at the polls. I'm sure we'll hear about that as well. How about it's illegal? How about it's illegal?
Yeah. And at CPAC, Todd Blanche also said something to the effect of, young lawyers should join us in the war against judges. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to that effect. I mean, when you have the executive branch declaring war on the judicial branch, that means our democracy is not working. These are co-equal branches. The executive branch needs to follow court orders, and it's not. And instead, it's threatening judges and demonizing them. And, you know, that's kind of like an authoritarian way to run the executive branch. And it's very scary.
It's I know we're running out of time, but it does raise a whole other discussion that we've had before about what happens to people. What happens to people like Todd Blanche, who was a respected prosecutor, White Plains satellite office out of the Southern District of New York. What happens? Is it money, ego, power? Is there bitterness? I mean, you could look at Rudy Giuliani, and there's people saying, no, he was always like that. And people say, no, he changed. And on. And lawyers who ultimately lose their license to practice law because they sold their soul. We'll see some of that soul selling perhaps on Wednesday and Thursday.
I mean, you know, I think it was Robert Caro who said that power really reveals who somebody really is. You know, I can't get inside of Todd Blanche's head. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know when he broke bad, but, you know, I mean, if he's willing to do what he's doing now, he was probably always willing to do it under the right circumstances. And he has no business continuing to run the department. It is far too important.
On that, we agree, and on many other things. And I think many of our listeners today, thanks for joining us, Stacey. Thank everybody at Justice Connection for the work they do, and we'll be paying attention. Stay safe.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody. That was Stacey Young of Justice Connection. Please go ahead and find Justice Connection on Substack and at their website and support them in any way you can. Pay attention to Wednesday and Thursday and the confirmation hearings if they remain on schedule. And I'm sure we'll be just, you know, our heads will be spinning with some of the answers we'll hear to hard questions coming from really thoughtful senators who want to get Blanche on record with his usual ridiculous answers that are non-responsive. I'll see you. And boy, we got another great show coming up on Wednesday. Please join us with a great guest. We're going to get really smart on what our president's trying to do with banking and crypto for fun and profit. I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care.